listening to a production of WRCT Pittsburgh. Any opinions expressed within are solely those of the participants and do not reflect the views of WRCT Radio Incorporated. Questions and comments can be addressed to the Public Affairs Director at pa@wrct.org or by calling 412-621-0728.
Live from WRCT Studios in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, the Total Education Hour, the talk shop for teachers, parents, and administrators. Here's your host of the show, Neil Haley, the Total Tutor.
Hi, everyone, and welcome. Again, the number is 412-621-9728. Exciting times. Go to my website at www.totaltutor.org. You can access podcasts of my shows, read my blog, and find out all the different stations that the Total Education Network is growing more and more. And I will be going tomorrow to the National Publicity Summit, and I will be representing the media with Fox News, MSNBC, and many other major media outlets. I'm looking forward to meeting all the authors tomorrow, but I want to welcome my co-host, Darcy Hyman, my educational expert, educational guru. Thanks for coming to the studio.
Thanks, Neil. I always love being on.
I'm excited, and then also want to welcome the television people that are watching the Total Education Hour as well, and the listeners all over the world. And just excitement galore with the topics we have today. And I wanted to say, do we have our caller on the line? Is it Dr. Gafanti on the line?
Yes.
Oh, hey, Dr. Gafanti. How are you?
Good. And yourself, Neil?
Doing very well. I have my ADHD expert on the line, and he's kind of controversial, Dr. Gafanti. Again, you've been doing on our Thursday night show on the Total Education.
Neil, I am shocked. How can you call me controversial?
Oh, yes. That's definitely Dr. Gafanti, but for certain people's belief. But what I was going to say, Dr. Gafanti, is you bring a different question that parents have asked you every week on Thursdays. And I wanted to discuss this with Darcy and I about the question you're going to bring to the table today. What question did you have, of a certain ADHD case we want to talk about and see what we think of your opinion on it?
Gosh, do you mind talking about the lady I talked about last night? She has so much going on that
you want to go. If you want to do that, that's fine, because we can go ahead and go that route. Okay, sure.
Do you want me to repeat her story?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. She's living in one town, divorced from the father of her son, who's living maybe 200 miles away. And she has noticed that every morning her son screams and yells until the ADHD drug takes effect. And she's just tired of being yelled at every morning. And basically she sends him to his room until the drug takes effect. So there are a couple of things going on here, and I think we talked about the impact of divorce on the family. And what's fundamentally the problem here is that she's got an angry young man who does not know how to deal with his emotions.
Yes, absolutely.
And she is suppressing the expression of the emotions rather than dealing with the emotions themselves. Does that basically summarize up what was going on?
Yes, absolutely. So what would you do in this situation? So basically you have an ADHD, the parent is just absolutely aggravated, and this is for listeners to kind of gather this in, and for Darcy to gather it in, that basically this ADHD child is so irritable and angry and gets so upset And we do have, and just to kind of segue, we do have Christopher Grove online, my BSc expert co-host, and he's a mental health therapist as well, Dr. Gafanti. So I'm sure he's going to have his point to chime in. And remember, it's a little shorter of time, but a little longer for you than you're usually coming on Thursdays. But the ADHD child yells and gets angry till he gets his medication. And Dr. Gafanti, what advice would you offer in that situation? He's getting angry, upset, and what would you offer until he gets the meds?
The first thing you need to understand is the child is probably low auditory in his learning systems, right? Mm-hmm. So what happens in life is people get hurt. It's just that's not optional. If you're living, you're going to get hurt. If you don't have the words to express your pain, you hold on to it. So over time, and especially through a divorce, this young man has a ton of pain. Now, pain generates 4 emotions. It generates anger, sadness, fear, and regret. A man will express his anger, but very seldom the other 3. And this kid is probably low auditory, as was probably his father, right? Because ADHD is a genetic thing.
Yes. And
all ADHD really is, as far as I can tell, is a synonym for hands-on learner, a person who learns through movement.
Okay.
And if the brain specializes in being a hands-on learner, it's going to suck experience from either the auditory side or the visual side. The lower auditory you are, the more problems you have speaking your heart. So, long story short, we got a little boy who can't speak his heart. His mom and his dad probably haven't figured out how to do that very well themselves, and instead of working on that, they're drugging him.
Okay.
So step 1, take him out of school.
Okay.
Because there's way too many people in the school, and he's going to be way too emotionally abused.
Okay.
Step 2, get one of John Gray's many books that has the love letter in it, and work it with the child. Get his heart straight first before you try and do anything else with him. And if you have video games or anything like that, get rid of them. Don't let him go down that path, because he'll just play the games rather than face his emotions.
Okay, I'm going to stop you right there, and I'm going to again. I have agreed completely with you, Dr. Gafanti, but I want to hear Christopher Grove's take in hearing all this. What is your thought?
Well, first of all, hello, Dr. Gafanti. Pleasure to be speaking with you. And Neil and Darcy, hello, everybody. You're right. The child will retreat and not engage in his surrounding environment, and will further, day by day, ignore the development of his speech skills and development. So, a very good point. Something I would love to hear you speak of is the comparison between all of the hard work, seemingly hard work, and the ease and convenience of, going to drug therapy. It's like, pharmacological therapy, using, I remember we used to use Ritalin, and now it's, 16 new drugs since then. But can you compare parents A versus parents B, say, or just two different situations with somebody who would choose to do drugs and somebody who would choose to do the long division?
Yeah, I think there's a complication here, and that is most shrinks are pushing the drugs, and so are the pediatricians.
Mm-hmm.
And
yes.
When you're searching for help, my mom used to call my pediatrician frequently and say, "What do I do with Steve?" Fortunately, I'm old enough that there was no ADHD at the time, and so he said, nothing is wrong with Steve. Steve's just Steve.
Okay.
Which so
And
if my mom wanted, had gotten, if I had been born 10 years earlier, the doc would have said, oh, Ritalin.
Okay. All right. So I know that's the answer. So your basic answer to the question is basically, because again, we're running out of time quickly, Dr. Gafanti. It's just time flies when you're having fun. That Darcy has the question on video games really quickly.
I do have a question. So I am a big advocate for using video games to teach and to actually incorporate them in the classroom, because quite a few of them actually do have some very good educational tools. A lot of studies have found that people who play video games are much better at solving problems, at thinking things through in a spatial manner. I was wondering if you thought that maybe there was some way that we could incorporate maybe some sort of gameplay, or what do you think we should do if the child refuses, like absolutely refuses to do anything else?
Let him do nothing. We're talking about a child who is emotionally hurt and needs as much motivation to speak as any. Yes, what you're praying for in this kid's case is that off of drugs, he starts screaming out in anger, because anger is the window that you can use to get him to speak his heart. That's his first step. You just have to know how to do it.
Okay, and what kind of medium would you provide this child with, since they do seem like they're very focused on playing games?
This child needs to use. You need to understand what's in the love letter, right? The love letter allows you to speak your anger, your sadness, your fear, your regret, and get you back to love, and it replaces all the negatives with their positives. So that's a process that I need this kid to go through. And my experience is take away all his diversions.
All right.
Okay.
And he will eventually go through it.
Sorry to cut you off, Dr. Gafanti. More information, because we got about 30 seconds, your website and everything. And Christopher, that's how quick the clock moves. But great questions. How about it? But you can listen to the show, and then also text me if you have any comments to continue, Chris, and kind of we'll put on the whole chat thing if you want to do that. But where can you find more information, Dr. Gafanti, on you?
ADHD or ActiveChild.com.
All right. Thanks for being on the show, Christopher. Chris, keep listening and text me and tell me what's going on. But we do have, so we have to get the hang up quickly. And we do have Jason on deck, and we're waiting on our guest to call in as well. And again, with the time, and we're waiting on our guest, Dr. Timothy Johnson. But I think that Jason's on the line. Let's talk about this, Darcy. This is controversial now. We're talking repeal of Florida ban on religious funding gets boost. And I'll just start to read this before Jason gets online. It's a proposed state constitutional amendment that, hi, Jason, just 1 second. I'm just going to talk a little bit about the topic real quick before our guest comes on. A repeal of Florida ban on religious funding gets boost. And it basically says a proposed state constitutional amendment that would repeal Florida's ban on using public dollars for religious funding, such as school vouchers, and advancing in legislature. The Senate Judiciary Committee approved the measure on Tuesday. A similar proposal is moving through the House. Senate Thad Altman, a Rockledge Republican who is sponsoring the amendment, said it would eliminate discrimination. An appellate court cited the ban in ruling a voucher program that lets students from failing public schools attend private schools at taxpayers' expense was unconstitutional. The Florida Supreme Court, though, did not rule on the issue, but struck back down the voucher program on under constitutional grounds. The higher court removed a similar appeal from the ballot in 2008 because its summary failed to accurately describe the amendment. And Jason, I just wanted you to listen to this, but I want to welcome my guest to the program, and Jason will probably disagree with you, Dr. Timothy Johnson. Thanks for calling the program, and you're part of the Frederick Douglass Foundation, is that correct?
I'm the founder and national chairman of the Frederick Douglass Foundation.
Oh, well, thank you for calling the program. What is your thought in this whole repeal of the Florida ban on religious funding?
Well, for how many years in this faith initiative where they've been funding a variety of different faith organizations, and I think it's important that if a person wants to send their child to a faith institution, they should have that opportunity, and they shouldn't have their tax dollars continue continue to pay into the public school system when their child is going to a school that's faithful.
Absolutely agree. What is your thought, Jason?
Well, I mean, if we're going to go in this direction on this topic, then what you're failing to recognize is the benefit the public schools offer to the community at large, which is, if it's a good school district, a higher housing costs, you get a better value for your home. They offer tracks and gyms for the community to use at a cheaper cost, if not at free cost. So, I mean, if you really want to take away the cost of the average taxpayer who does not pay into because their child is not going to public school, then you take away all those other benefits as well. But they do benefit from it, so they should pay into it.
Okay, Dr. Johnson, what is your thought, what Jason, the public school guy, said about this?
Well, you know, as an educator in the college environment, as well as my wife is an educator and from K-12 and now in the college environment, I think it's rather interesting when we talk about what we take away from the public school. Look, the public school system is failing. If you look at the data worldwide, you see that we spend more per student than any other country other than one country. And that's ridiculous because when you rationalize what our young people are able to do, they're not globally competitive. People got to get out of this mindset that young people just need to be competitive based on their zip codes. We need young people to be competitive not only in their state and in this country, but worldwide. And that's a failing system. Our education system is antiquated. It has not evolved as our nation has evolved. Look at all the technology that we're all using right now. Our education system is not. And we spend more time wanting to protect the jobs of the union workers than we are about educating the youth. And I'm sorry, the first responsibility of education is not to protect the jobs of the teacher, but to ensure our young people are competitive. They can go out there and can read, write, and do arithmetic and be able to command science. And that's not happening in our education system. So the reality of it is if a parent is being forced to stay in an education system that's not being successful for a child, he should have the opportunity to send that child to whatever school they want, and those tax dollars that are attached to that child, because every school system is counting the numbers at the beginning of the school year to get how much money they're going to get from the state. That money should go with the child to whatever school it is. That's the reality. The first priority is not about how well the house or the neighborhood is rated, but it's about ensuring that young person is educated. That needs to be our number one priority, not all the rest of those things that your guest just said. I mean, I don't understand why we're so far off the map when it comes down to educating young people. Young people is our number one priority, not about everything else or everybody else.
Okay, Darcy has a question. Darcy's my other co-host, Dr. Johnson. So let's hear what Darcy has to say, because Darcy's on the other side of the fence, I think.
Well, actually, first of all, Dr. Johnson, I do want to say thank you so much for coming on the show. It's a real pleasure to talk to you. Also, I couldn't agree with you more, honestly. I normally am on the other side of the fence,
yes.
but I definitely, the public school system is absolutely failing. And it's pathetic, and is one of the saddest things, honestly, to work in a country where I watch this school system. And I work in Korea and Beijing now, too. And I'm watching this in other countries, how much better their school systems are and how they're using American teachers to teach their students. And I kind of want to get your input on getting teachers from other countries to help in our schools. Do you think that this is something we should do, or do you think that this is a step in the wrong direction?
No, I think it's a step in the right direction. I mean, look, we're not doing well, and I'm not blaming all educators as the fault. I'm just saying that the system is not effective when it comes down to ensuring that our young people are globally competitive. And if that means bringing in teachers from other countries in order to give us a different way of educating, so be it. I mean, I think we need to be willing to try some things versus being stuck that we have to keep doing what we've been doing for the last 50 to 60 years. I mean, we just got to change. To me, at the end of the day, and I've got 4 grown children, but I've got 3 grandsons. And what I'm more concerned about now is making sure that they have the same opportunity that I was afforded as a young person and my children were afforded. That's what my passion is, that my kids are grown.
Yes.
And so they're going to be okay. But the young people who are coming to the education system today, if they're forced to deal with the same systems that all of us have had to deal with, then they're not going to be successful, and they're definitely not going to be globally competitive.
All right, Jason, your response we're really going off topic in a second,
okay,
but
well,
that was a good question. The repeal of Florida ban, you gave your talking points, and again, you and school vouchers, Jason, again, which was a huge debate on one of my other shows. The fact is, I believe that we need competition in our schools, and if we're going to continue to allow public education to dictate what's going on with homeschools, charter schools, and private schools, we're never going to fix this education system.
Right.
Okay, well, first of all, I mean, let me deal with Dr. Johnson. He changed the topic a little bit. Number one, and when you talk about achievement, yes, you are right. We are failing certain kids, but those are the kids at the lower socioeconomic stature. If you break down those numbers, when you look at how we compete globally, if you break down those numbers and look at by economic stature, you'll see that those kids in the middle to upper class, not only are they competing, but they are in the top 3 in the world. Where we get dragged down is with the poorer kids. Now, that I agree with. That does need to be changed, and that does need to be changed. That does need to be modified. Now, when it comes to adapting and changing to the school environment, if you take a look at the Washington, D.C. model, if you look at the Pittsburgh public model, if you look at a number of these models, you'll see that public education, to include unions, are accepting things such as merit pay and other modifications in order to try to help and benefit these kids in these lower socioeconomic areas. So to say that unions are against this idea of change is a misnomer, because the fact of the matter is they are changing, and they are changing in a number of big places. Now, to the topic at hand, the Florida voucher system. The Florida voucher system, it still has it was a 3-part system until one part got thrown out. They still allow for vouchers for those students who are disabled and those students who have learning disabilities. However, the biggest problem I have with this idea of choice and this idea of allowing people to move, I shouldn't have to pay for you to educate your kids somewhere else. If I'm benefiting from the public school that I have here and I'm getting the benefit from them, then I shouldn't have to pay for your kid to make your choice. If you want to make a choice, go ahead and do that. What we should do instead is refocus on changing the schools in the interior instead of trying to break them down even further.
Well, it's funny that you started off with talking about Washington and Pittsburgh as your examples. I was just in Pittsburgh, and they're having some major challenges with school choice. We know what's taking place in Washington, D.C., and that conversation is still taking place as it relates down to school choice and what they're doing to educate their kids. But I'm going to leave that alone, because I thought that was really interesting. You brought up those two, which many of your listeners, or many of the listeners of this radio station, I'm sure have heard a lot more, and it's not a positive story with each city. But as it relates down to paying for it, I will agree with you that it is not the responsibility of somebody else to pay for my child. But at the end of the day, if my tax dollars are going to pay for your child and my child is not getting a quality education, then I want to put my child in a place that's going to get a quality education. My child is not a guinea pig.
Well, and you have every right to do so, but I shouldn't have to pay for you.
Well, and so if that's where this piece is at right now, then I tend to agree. That part, the particular part, I agree with you. I do not disagree with you on that. But again, responsibility, when we started talking about social economics, and you said the upper tier people, all these school voucher system is for that social economic disadvantaged young person. So it's not for the upper tier child. It's for the child that's not being successful, the child that doesn't have the resources at home, the child that does not have the ability to be successful unless we put them in an environment that's more conducive for their learning.
Correct.
That's social economics. That's the reality. So let's make clear of what they're trying to do, or what you're trying to do in Florida is intended to work on an environment or a group of young people
Correct.
who historically have been disenfranchised in the first place in the education system.
Dr. Johnson, now my thought in this, when I'm listening to Jason and his whole union spiel, and Darcy, who again seeing the international look at this, my thought is that, guess what? If we're going to allow kids that cannot afford religious education, certain, let's say, Catholic schools or Christian schools, or have the opportunity to go to private schools because they can't afford it, to allow them that opportunity with school vouchers, I think is a great thing, because then it creates that competition. I hear these things, Dr. Johnson, what I've been hearing from these pundits, school vouchers don't work. Do you agree with that or not?
No, I disagree. And let me just make it clear. I graduated from a private Catholic high school, and I grew up in inner city Cleveland, Ohio. So I understand, and I went to public school up until the 9th grade. So I understand both sides of the aisle. I'm a product of both sides. And I would tell you, I think my mother would have been excited to know that she had a voucher, because my mother paid out of her pocket and continued to pay her taxes for me to go to a public school, even though I went to a private Catholic school. And I would tell you, there's something about that education that, like everybody, I've made my share of mistakes, but I would tell you, I would not trade in my education any day of the week. Those are the things that we have to recognize, and we want every young person, not every white young person, not every black young person, not every Hispanic young person, but every young person to have an opportunity to compete. And that's the responsibility that I believe we have, and each one of our constitutions within our state has that responsibility to make sure that those young people can compete. So if that means that we actually live out this capitalistic society and compete against public schools, then so be it. Because personally, I think the problem that we have is that public schools have not had to deal with any real competition. To have charter schools, but they have come under the control of the State Board of Education, you may as well not even have charter schools.
You know, I absolutely have to agree with you on that. Honestly, I think that a lot of people don't understand that they do have this choice. You have the option to go to a different school. And if we just make it the norm that everyone is always going to have the option and everyone is always going to have the choice of which school they can go to, I don't think it's going to have this stigma that it seems to have, where everyone is paying a certain amount for this and this money's going to that. Why can't we just pay for education in general and everyone get to go to the school that is best fitted for them? They get the education that is best fitted for them, and we actually bring back the competition that should be in our education system anyways.
So,
absolutely.
Jason, you get this response before I find more information on Dr. Johnson, because we're close to running out of time. What is your response after all of us pro Dr. Johnson and pro religious funding? So...
Well, no, you know, honestly, Dr. Johnson, I don't think he and I disagree very much as far as when it comes to helping the kids. You know, the goal is to help the kids specifically. But where I do have a little bit of a divide is in the fact that with all of you guys actually is that the voucher system creates a positive environment and a positive change for all these kids. Well, you know, every statistic and everything that I looked at, research that deals with this topic shows that voucher systems have a very little, if any, impact on improving the education of the kids, either in the public school or in the private school. It doesn't have a significant change. So if you want to create a completely new educational system, shouldn't that system then have a significant positive effect on learning instead of just having a marginal to a no effect on learning? So I mean, I agree that things do need to be changed, but what we really need to do is make positive change, not just change.
Well, 30 seconds. Dr. Johnson, where can we find more information on you?
You can go on our website at www.tfdf, as in the Frederick Douglass Foundation.org. TFDF.org.
Dr. Johnson, thanks for taking the time to call us. Awesome information. I wish we would have known you were in Pittsburgh. You could have came on the television show as well, because we film television here on Fridays. I don't know if whenever you're back in Pittsburgh, you're welcome to come to the studio, okay?
Well, thank you very much. I look forward to connecting with you.
All right, well, you take care. That was Dr. Johnson, and we're going to be back in just a moment. You're listening to Total Education Hour.
We know where they've taken her.
In a defining time, amid a noble quest, a bond is forged.
We are here to save the princess.
But the princess is sleeping.
Sorry. Imagine what a little time can do for your family.
The princess is sleeping.
Oh, sorry. Excuse us.
Shh. From the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
All right. Give me that. No problem.
Look, Mom, no skis. No fist.
Falls on TV can be entertaining. Falling at home can be devastating. Each year, 1 in 3 Americans over 65 falls in their own home, breaking bones and shattering lives. For older people, any broken bone can be serious. A broken hip, potentially lethal. To make your home as fall safe and bone friendly as it can be, visit orthoinfo.org/falls. A public service message from the American Academy of Orthopedic Surgeons, where staying on your feet is doctor's orders.
Is that thing getting closer? Look how high that thing's going. Look out there. Look at the debris.
Give me the camera.
No, just drive. I've got it.
Zoom in. Zoom in.
I can't believe this is happening.
Oh, the size of that thing.
It's everywhere.
Are you getting this?
Yeah, I've got it. What was that?
It's the National Guard.
How'd they get here so fast?
I don't know.
Pull over. Pull over.
Do you have what it takes to head into the heart of the storm? Check out NationalGuard.com.
Welcome back to the Total Education Hour. I'm with Darcy Hyman, my educational consultant, and you can go to my website at www.totaltutor.org to learn more information on the Total Education Network and its growth. What unbelievable guests we so far had. A jam-packed hour of a lineup, always 4 major guests we will have on, but you can go to the website and learn about all the different shows. I do a show 7 nights a week in the Total Education Network. You just have to go to my website to learn more information on that. And our next topic, Darcy, because I like to always so our guest is ready and queued up on this. The title is Third Grade Reading Predicts Later High School Graduation. So basically that we're going to learn more about this third grade reading and how much of an importance it is. And our guest, Joanne Kaminsky, will be soon on the line. Joanne, are you on the line?
Yes, I am.
All right, Joanne Kaminsky, you are the Skype reading tutor, and thanks for calling the program. And I'm really excited about the topic because, again, you're a reading expert, and I'm really excited to learn more about this topic. And it basically talked about third grade reading predicts later high school graduation. When it talked about students who struggle in third grade reading and never catch up, basically it takes them longer to graduate, and a lot of them drop out. Isn't that correct?
That is correct. In fact, there was even a huge initiative called Reading First that was put in place to try to solve this huge issue.
Oh, really? Okay. So what is your thought? I mean, why would this be? And then my co-host Darcy will have a question as well. What can we do to make sure that this doesn't happen to so many youngsters in third grade?
Well, the first thing is, early. Putting our kids into school at an earlier age, making sure that they're going to preschool and getting some of those basic foundations before they start learning how to read and place. It's really important that they are able to be able to rhyme, to have heard a lot of different stories before they enter school. Reading to your kids, as we all know, is super important for our children, and talking about books is super important as we are working with our own children, and making sure they get into school really early. And then on top of that, when we get into the school system, making sure that we are providing some ongoing assessments to find out exactly what it is that the child knows and they don't know, so that we can close that gap immediately, not waiting until the end of the year to find out, they don't know that information. Guess they'll have to learn it next year.
And I absolutely agree, Joanne, that basically if you don't have that foundation, the National Reading Panel, we dealt with all these different situations. We see that if students do not learn to read by the third grade, they're going to struggle tremendously. And you're saying that the foundation needs to be built very early. But I'm sure that Darcy has a question for you, Joanne.
I do. And actually, first of all, Joanne, thank you so much for being on the program. It's really great talking to you. I wanted to know.
Thank you for having me.
Sure. I'm a big advocate for playing games with kids. Actually, I'm a big advocate for games at all ages. Honestly, I still play games. But I wanted to know if you have any favorite games that you like to play with students who are preschool through third grade, or even prior to preschool, that we can do at home with our children.
Yeah, one of my favorite games is a car game that I play with my kiddos, and it's actually, I'll look at whatever is in my environment. Maybe it's a stop sign, and I say the word slowly. I'll say, stop. Who can guess my word? And my child will say, stop, and I'll say, good job. This is the beginning transition of being able to read, being able to just put sounds together without letters and be able to figure out what the word is. this is the one thing, as they're beginning to learn how to read, this is the skill that they're going to rely on. So that's a real fun and easy game. I make it up as I go every time. They know I'm picking stuff out from the environment, so it's getting them keyed up to take a good look at what's outside, and instead of just sitting there and being bored.
and we do the background. We do have Jared on the line, and Jared, thanks for calling the Total Education Hour. Jared, again, is one of my co-hosts. We're waiting to get back in the studio, but you're with your child, having some fun, enjoying the nice weather out there. But we're on with Joanne Kaminsky, who's the Skype reading tutor, and basically she's talking about how the topic is third grade reading. If you aren't able to read by third grade, how you're going to struggle, and it's going to take you a lot longer to graduate or drop out. What's your thoughts on that, Jared?
Well, certainly when I was a fourth grade teacher, I absolutely saw exactly what she was talking about. Students that were proficient or, grade level at fourth grade were much further along than the children that were not. And even when I started teaching some of the older grades, I really noticed that the same students that struggled then in third and fourth grade were really struggling in seventh grade. So I completely agree. I guess my question for the reading specialist, the reading teacher, would be what could parents and educators do to really make sure that to help students along that their reading is quite good by third grade?
Good question.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a wonderful question. And the first thing for a parent is definitely to be listening to what the teachers are telling them. A lot of the teachers, they're not going to hide the information of if a child is struggling in reading. They're going to be continuing to tell you that over and over and over again. And the first time they tell you that, that's a good time to start looking for some other additional resources, especially if the school is not able to provide that. Find somebody who can help. We definitely want to be doing all those typical things, reading to our kids on a nightly basis.
Yes.
We want to make sure that we are talking about books with our kids. We want to make sure that we're putting the right kinds of books in the hands of our kids. A lot of people want to put books that are too hard for kids to read inside of their hands. And then they get frustrated, and they give up, and then they develop bad attitudes towards reading. And one of the things that I always suggest is put books that are too easy for your kids in their hands. Because if your child is starting to think that they're not very good at reading, putting stuff in their hands that they can't read is just going to verify that information.
And the question, Joanne, is we do got another question from a text message from our good friend Christopher Grove. Is we wish we had 7 lines. So if anyone ever wants to go ahead and donate to WRCT, we would really appreciate to have more lines. But what I was going to say, the question I have is that you don't believe this is to have them read easy books is more for confidence, but but it's not. It's not something that you really want to utilize as your instruction all the time. It's more about building confidence, but you really got to keep them going up the ladder. It's just more about a motivation, correct, Joanne?
Absolutely. It's definitely for the motivation. And then when we're talking about like the instructional level, I definitely am going to put books that are at the instructional level in front of my child when I'm teaching them. I have a hard time with teaching my own kids sometimes. It's not always an easy thing. They don't want to learn from mom.
I agree, Joanne. And then also, I got a question. Here's the text. What age should we begin reading to our children? Very good question,
the day
Chris.
they're born.
That's that. And as educators, we know this, Chris, but great question. But again, start reading to them when they're conceived. Basically, the fact is that the more that you have the opportunity to practice reading, if you're the husband or the significant other, to read to the womb, they're a great opportunity because guess what? Music, reading, it definitely proves success. Darcy, question for Joanne, because again, as time flies, we're having fun. We got about 3 minutes.
I do. I also wanted to ask you about exposure to words outside of books. So a lot of times I know that parents like to label things in their homes. I wanted to ask you, some people I know, and I'm one of them, like to label with more than one language, and I wanted to know if you think that this causes a cognitive confusion or if you think that this would actually aid the child.
Oh, no, I think that would be fantastic, especially if you've got like a bilingual home and, you know, they want to make sure that their child has that. They actually say that from ages 0 to 8 months, if a child is hearing the language of another language, they can actually form those neural pathways to be able to learn that language easier when they're older, versus not being able to do that.
No.
Well, we're hearing some parenting in the background on this situation, and that's funny. But Joanne, I absolutely agree. My thought is the basic thing is reading is so fundamental. When we see test scores going down and dipping, a lot of times they want to hire a math specialist, so they want to hire a writing specialist. But ultimately, if they can't read, forget about it, right?
Right.
Is that correct, Joanne?
If they can't read, you know what? There's a way to figure it out for every single child, you know, and there's a way to close that gap for every single child.
I agree.
So find the person that can do it, because there are people out there who can.
Absolutely, and they have the time and the effort to be able to do it, and they understand, and they're successful at doing it. All right, well, Joanne, where can we find more information on you?
You can go to www.theskypingreadingtutor.com.
And you're out of Milwaukee, and it's fantastic what you're able to do by tutoring via the internet. A lot of people don't think of tutors, and Darcy does the same thing and I do it in China, but you do it in Korea
and China.
So
and
basically,
America.
and where else?
In America.
In America, as I do as well. And it's just a great opportunity that you can make that connection. And a lot of people don't understand the fact, Joanne, that guess what? Even though it's computer screen to computer screen, there really is a nice little relationship.
I'm worried about what you're doing.
And I'm worried about it too, Jared. So, Joanne, again, this is the fun thing of radio. And but Joanne, again, tell me the website one more time, Joanne.
It's www.theskypingreadingtutor.com.
And Joanne, thanks for calling the program. You're going to be our reading expert whenever we have some certain reading topics. But reading is so fundamental, and it's awesome what you're able to do and how you've been able to connect that in another way. And Darcy, don't you agree?
I absolutely agree. Thank you so much, Joanne.
So thanks, Joanne,
thank
for
you so much.
calling the program, and we'll have you back another month, okay?
Okay, sounds good, Neil.
All right, take care. All right, that was Joanne Kaminsky, Skype reading tutor. And we have Jarrett and the playground, as everyone knows how beautiful it is out there right now. And Jarrett, you there?
Yeah, I am still there. Could you guys hear me?
Oh, yes, we could. Yes, we can. That's the fun thing of radio. But we're about to take a break, and we'll be back in just a moment.
Okay. All right.
Hi, my name is Sarah.
And I'm Denise, and we're here at the Western Pennsylvania Humane Society.
We are here to tell you about our Girl Scout Gold Award project.
As you can see, these animals are very lovable, but there's a problem here at the Humane Society.
They do not have enough wet food to give to their animals.
And that's where you guys come in.
We are asking for your help through a generous donation to the Western Pennsylvania Humane Society. At this time, we have collected over 1,000 cans and donated them to the Humane Society, but they still need more. These animals need their food so they can continue to have healthy, full lives before they are adopted out to a loving home.
Another way you can help out is by adopting an animal from the shelter.
Thank you for your time and attention, and I hope that you have the consideration to remember the animals at the Western Pennsylvania Humane Society.
Somewhere around the world, there are men and women of the armed forces risking their lives, helping rebuild communities after natural disasters, collecting toys for needy children, tutoring kids in local schools. They were at Bunker Hill, Gettysburg, Iwo Jima, Khe They've been under the sea and to the moon. They stand watch in Korea. They keep drugs away from our shores. They patrol our skies every day, every year. These are your sons and daughters. You see them in church and at Little League games. But they are special because they work to keep us safe, secure, and free. Dedicated men and women who put their country first.
The American Legion. We're a powerful force for the nation. We pledge ourselves to our veterans, our youth, a strong national defense, and Americanism. These 4 pillars shape our work and what we do for America. We work relentlessly within our 4 pillars of service, and we succeed. We're committed to making sure all veterans receive the benefits they deserve for the sacrifices they've made in service to America. We support and promote citizenship and integrity in America's future leaders. We know what policies, tools, and manpower our military needs to protect this great country. We fight to get these things done. We're patriots through and through. We promote and defend these values every day in communities across the nation. Go to Legion.org to find out more about the American Legion's commitment of service to America.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Total Education Hour. Again, I'm the host of the show, Neil Haley. I'm with Darcy, my educational consultant, and really exciting shows so far. Jam-packed, and I got to jump in the car and drive out to New York City really soon. And let's go to this next topic. Very controversial topic as we're waiting for our guest to call in, Pamela Owens. And basically what we're going to be talking about is the situation in Detroit. And I had a show on Friday night a couple months ago or weeks ago, and it was absolutely shocking. The reason I was shocked is to see how horrible the Detroit public schools are. And we should be on the air soon in Detroit. But that they're just, it's horrible. And the reason it's so horrible is the way they're taking care of special needs children. I'm absolutely frustrated in this fact. But let me read a little bit about this and what's happening. And Secretary Arne Duncan is really about to make a change. And they're looking to really restructure Detroit's public schools with lots of charter schools, which I'm sure Jason would love. But Darcy, what's your thought before our guest, Pamela Owens, gets on the line?
Oh, honestly, I think we need to revamp the whole system. Detroit, Pittsburgh, everywhere. So hopefully this is something that everybody's just going to follow suit.
Absolutely. I mean, and the fact is they're talking about the number of schools. 41 schools will be, they're ready to turn 41 schools into charter operators. Good. In a 74,000 student district. And the thing that made me shocked before Pamela gets on the line is that just really frustrated me is the way they're ignoring the special needs children. But I want to welcome Pamela Owens to the program. Again, right for you. You're a writing and editing coach. I really appreciate you calling the program. You've been on the Total Education Network, but this is the first time for the Total Education Hour. And I found a topic in Detroit that I know that you have an opinion on. And I'm passionate because I've heard from special needs parent who's a big-time advocate that came on my show a couple of months ago that literally tore apart Detroit's public school system. What is your thought on this, Pamela, and this article about changing them all a lot of them into charter schools?
My thought is that it is there's something has to be done, but this is not the way to do it. It has been found over and over and over again that charter schools are no better or worse than the public schools. And just to have this blanket, we're going to turn them into charter schools. Why isn't that same energy and that same money taken to find out a better way to strengthen the public schools, even if we have fewer public schools? The population in Detroit has declined. A lot of students and people in general have moved out of the city, so what they call right-sizing is a viable option. And everyone can't have a neighborhood school when there's only a few people in a neighborhood. I can understand that. But to just blanket decide to turn them over to charter schools when it has been found that charter schools do no better or no worse than any other school or a public school, I believe is the wrong approach.
Okay, Jarrett, you're on the line right now, Jarrett. What is your thought? What is your thought on this?
Well, I think what we have as an opportunity is they're looking to restart the education system within Detroit. There's a great opportunity here to really combine it within the communities and develop teamwork and include the parents making, include educators in the decision making. There's a great opportunity here.
Okay.
Why can't they do that right now? What is the difference?
Meaning in public schools, right, Pamela?
Exactly. If they are going to take, for example, a building. In my neighborhood, for example, there's an elementary school a few blocks away that has been shuttered for the last couple of years. And my children are now adults, but the children in the neighborhood where they go... Hello?
Well, don't worry. You're on, Pamela. Don't worry.
I'm not quite sure. But if they were to turn this shuttered building into a charter school, what would be the difference? Why, just because it has a charter school name, now are all of a sudden the parents involved, and all of a sudden the teachers are asked to be involved? What changes? Just because it is now a charter school, now all of a sudden the parents are involved, and it's the same parents who live in the neighborhood that lived here before?
See, Pamela, I want to hear what Darcy's thought on this is, because I'm ready to go forward because Jarrett got cut off the line. But again, when I was looking at this, Pamela, I thought it was going to involve writing. But always we butt heads and we're great friends. But I always find topics for you that are controversial. Well.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, go, Darcy.
Hi, Pamela.
Hi.
First of all, I do have to say I understand the want to make it a charter school. And this is from, a public standpoint, because the charter school is something new. I think that it's something that's refreshing, that so many people are looking at it and saying, okay, we can make this into what we want to. We don't have to conform to the public school system. We don't have to conform to what it was before. And so being able to say, hey, we're starting fresh, I think that that might be a huge part of why we're trying to make this into a charter school, as opposed to just revamping what we already had. I think that it's rebuilding from the ground up, as opposed to just the feeling of putting a new coat of paint.
Okay, but my question is, okay, so I like my example. Okay, the same parents are living in this neighborhood, and they turn this school from a public school to a charter school.
Right.
The same parents, the same situation, the same environment. Now, all of a sudden, because it is now called a charter school, everything else changes. The way the neighborhood changes, the way the parents help with the school, that automatically changes just because the type of school has changed from a public school to a charter school?
Well, in some ways it has, Pamela. I mean, and I know that a lot of the charter school bashers, what they do is they look at numbers based on morons that started charter schools compared to the ones that were successful, like I had on my charter school roundtable discussion a couple months ago, and they were all fantastic. Right. But then you got people that can't manage the game, and they close them. Why can't we close public schools the same?
Well, but my point is that there are good and bad charter schools, and remember, for your guests, I have taught in both charter and public and private.
Yes.
And there are good and bad public schools, and I've taught in good and bad public schools. It has to do with the environment. And I know I only have a couple of minutes, but I thought of an example this morning when I knew I was going to be on the show. I was in a public school, and my particular class, I had an 8th grade government class. The books that we were given, the book ended with Jimmy Carter as president. Oh, wow. And this was about 10 years ago, so he hadn't been president for 20 years. I had to go out and find my own book, and I had to make copies of it. And I was able to get with the principal to have my 8th grade class all morning. And the things that we were able to do within that, because I had them all morning, we could do all kinds of very creative things. That was the most fun year I had in teaching in years. And it was the most fun for my students also. And that was within the public school because I, as a teacher, demanded it from the administration. And
I'm sorry, Pamela, I'm sorry to interrupt. We said we need statistics, Darcy. That's what Christopher Grove just said. We need statistics. Yes, that's what Christopher said. But Pamela, my thought is I understand what you're saying, that the lack of funding sometimes in charter schools, but we can't. Why can't we have competition? Before we run out of time, and then you can tell us more information. Why can't we have competition?
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with competition. My whole foundation of what I'm saying is that just because you change it from a charter school from a public school to a charter school, and all of the other variables stay the same, where's the magic? It's not. I don't see the magic because, like I said, I taught in a charter school where we had the same problems with good parents and bad parents, and kids that didn't go to school and kids that did go to school. It was the exact same thing, and so I don't see why changing it to a charter school all of a sudden makes it magic. There are good and bad in both, and charter school is not a magic potion to me.
All right, Pamela.
I'm not a charter school basher, but I don't see where it's a magic potion that everybody thinks that it is.
See, I think you need to have competition. You need to have you have to need private schools, home school, and charter schools.
Well, those are choices. Those are choices.
So they need to have those choices. And if you eliminate charter schools altogether,
I'm not saying eliminate them. I'm just saying all of a sudden it's not a magic pill either.
Okay, where can you find more information on you, Pamela? And you're going to be coming on once a month, and hopefully we'll get on in Detroit soon. So another station for the Teleeducation Network.
Right, and my website is writingitrightforyou.com, and that's where you can find all of the information about me.
All right, well, I really appreciate you coming on. You were always awesome, as always, and I want to thank you for calling in, and I'm looking forward to connecting on some other shows as well. I'm sure you want to listen to Sunday night's big debate between Larry Sand and Gary Ravini. That will be interesting regarding unions. All right? Well, you take care.
Thank you.
Well, thanks for calling. All right. That
Bye.
was Pamela Owens, and I absolutely disagree with her, but that's what she's like. I like her. She's just like Jason.
I do too.
Jason and I are really good friends, but we don't agree on one thing at all. Well, I can't believe, Darcy, our hour has almost ended.
I know.
And then and when I want to thank producers, first of all, then I want to thank my guests. I want to thank Christopher Perrone for being an unbelievable radio producer from WRCT. I want to thank Christina, my awesome television producer. I want to thank my co-host Darcy, the only one that wants to come into the studio with me now.
It's fun.
And it is fun. And then I want to thank all my guests, Dr. Johnson, Dr. Gafanti, Joanne Kaminsky, and last but not least, Pamela Owens. Please go to my website at www.totaltutor.org. Remember, 4:30 is Friday, and then go to the Total Education Network. We are all every night, and I'll be going to New York City, and I'll tell you how everything went. And I appreciate everyone listening to the program. And again, Darcy, thanks again for this opportunity, and I really appreciate this. And I just can't wait to the next weeks of shows. Good night, everyone.
To turn. Well, there's a place you can go to put an end to your frustration.
It's a site that everyone should learn.
USA.gov.
Find your Social Security benefits online.
USA.gov.
Our list of jobs will put you on cloud nine.
USA.gov.
Shop auctions for a used minivan anytime.
USA.gov.
You can apply for a student loan.
USA.gov.
Get energy saving tips for your home.
USA.gov.
So great you might just get carpal tunnel syndrome.
It's government made easy for the people. USA.gov. For the people. USA.gov.
And now, another adventure with Savings Man.
Oh dear, I can't afford that.
Charge it. You can pay it off later.
Not so fast, credit card guy.
Savings Man.
Don't let him entice you, ma'am. Credit card guy can lead you to big trouble. You need a savings plan.
You're right, Savings Man.
Get this ballpark estimate worksheet at choosetosave.org. It will help you get started.
Gee, thanks, Savings Man.
No, thank you.
So visit choosetosave.org and get your ballpark estimate today. And now, another adventure with Savings Man.
This is great. Every day should be like this.
It will be when I retire in a few years. I've been planning and saving.
Did you save for me?
Well, this is unexpected.
Where'd you come from?
Out of the blue, just like an illness, an emergency, or
That's enough, Mr. Unexpected.
Savings Man.
There's still time to plan. Find out how at choosetosave.org with a ballpark estimate worksheet.
I will. Thanks, Savings Man.
No, thank you.
So visit choosetosave.org today.